Hi, Brian. How are you?
Hi, Quincy. Doing well. How about you?
I'm all good, all good. If anything, let's go to the breakdown, all right?
Okay.
So, yeah, there's gonna be 14 harsh truths in our 20s. Basically, I'll say a quote, then you give your own reflection,
Okay.
your analysis, whether you agree, disagree, and then base it off maybe if you have an experience.
Sure.
So yeah.
My first question though is why not 20 harsh truths in your 20s? Sayang yung opportunity. 14, 6 na lang.
Okay, I don't. I want to make the podcast long, but not too long.
Okay, fair.
Because if anything, 14 is a lot.
Okay.
So, but yeah, next time 20. Maybe in the next episode.
No, pag ano na tayo, pag 30s na tayo. 30
30.
harsh truths in your 30s. Yeah.
Okay, sige.
Okay, go ahead, shoot.
All right. So first one. You make better decisions and you learn more by assuming you're dumber than everyone else. There's a lot of value being an idiot in a room full of CEOs, and once you get to understand it fully, you have now the opportunity to make it simpler for others.
Very fair. Very fair. Especially like putting this in the context of us being in our 20s. I would imagine most of people in their early 20s just come out of college. And what happened in college, you go through 4 or 5 years, depending if you're delayed or not. And within those 4 and 5 years, you build your credibility within the school, maybe join an org or two. And you feel like you're on top of the world towards your last year. But then everything shifts when you start with your first job. And I think this is connected to what you're saying when you enter a new field, a new part of your life, such as being part of the corporate world. You really have to start from nothing. And the wisest way to go about it is, like what you mentioned, is to act and be the dumbest person in the room, really just absorbing as much learning as you can from the people around you.
Mm. Well, I do want to touch upon though with what you just mentioned. Were you a student leader also
You
back
can
then?
say that.
All right.
A few orgs here and there.
Yeah, because I'm trying to see the transition. You said that you were like on top of the world in your last year in college, and then right after that back to zero. So how was that transition for you at least?
Well, first, I wouldn't say I was on top of the world. Okay, let me correct myself because I don't want to put myself, too out there. But let's just put it as I gained a lot of experience in college. And entering my very first job, I was very confident in myself. Yeah, I told myself, I experienced a lot of things in college, maybe more experience when it comes to org work compared to other people. So I thought I had a very strong competitive advantage compared to other applicants, which I did on the, I guess, the surface level part of it. But when I started working, and mind you, this is coming from me being part of multiple orgs, handling academics, majors, internships during college. During the third month of my first job, I broke down. I broke down. And I can count the number of times I broke down about work in my whole life. That was the second time. And I remember a colleague of mine, I was in a call with him, and I just suddenly mentioned to him that I couldn't handle the work. It was too much for me. And that was opening of my mindset when it comes to work. That Brian that I was able to build in college, those skills, yes, they are essential. These are your foundational skills, but I had to learn from others. Versus me being in my last year in college, people were going to me for advice. I would be calling, the shots in the different organizations that I was part of. This time around, it would be you learning and just accepting everything and absorbing everything. So that was a big realization for me during my third month in my first corporate job.
Wow. Well, I would say I'd relate to you there. Um, I hate the. I mean, I don't think everyone likes it, but for me especially, I don't like being overwhelmed with work. If anything, I do understand and completely understand where you're coming from. Also, where you just at some point you just want to cry.
Exactly. You just want to cry. And sometimes you can't even cry. Like you're incapable of crying. Like it's so hard to release it. But the insides of you is shouting already, but you are unable to release it. So definitely agree with you on that and understand you.
Do you think that's normal for you
Yeah,
to?
definitely. I think it's very much normal. Maybe it's because of the pressures around us as well, like what surrounds us, especially for maybe those breadwinners, those trying to earn for other people, with the families. Maybe breaking down emotions would probably be the last thing on your mind. I could imagine these people, and fortunately, I'm not yet in this or haven't been a part of this type of situation wherein they are going through a lot of different stuff, but instead of pausing and opening and breaking down or seeing someone, they have to work. A great thing that I recently observed is I've been going last year I started taking the angkas in my corporate job before, and I just started being more observant of the people around me. And I would see the street vendors, I would see the wet markets, and I would observe the people while I'll be in the angkas, ha. And I'd be like, these people don't have the privilege to complain about their life. And I think that's a perfect example. Like, for sure, they're stressed about money, stressed about many different things. How are they going to have food on the table, pay for their child's let's say needs when it comes to schooling? But they just go on with their lives and just not complain at all. They don't cry, they don't break down, they don't have time for it because they have to work, right?
Yeah. Totally get that. If anything, you empathize or sympathize. I don't know which one of the two.
Sympathize.
Sympathize. There you go. With the people around you, especially when you grow much older, you understand now where they're coming from. You're like, oh wow, I'm in a lucky place right now. If anything, so it makes you more. I wouldn't say like very happy, but like thankful.
Yeah, grateful. I would say, and privileged. I think that's one of the things that I learned. I knew that I was privileged from the get go, but all the more recently when my eyes opened up to the world, stepped out of corporate to do freelance. So basically, no work, no pay. So having that surrounding or environment made me really open my mind to see these types of people, these types of things that, hey, for the longest time, I've been living a life of privilege. And till now, I still am. But yeah, I think it's a different mindset when you frame it as that.
Right. So second one. The hardest respect to earn is one's own. If you earn your own respect, you earn everyone else's by default. If you try to earn everyone else's, you lose your own.
Okay, that was a mouthful. I agree to an extent. Definitely, you are your harshest critic. But I think you just respecting yourself or just living in your own shell will not necessarily gain the respect of other people. um, I'm not saying to be people pleasers, but I've always been a fan of feedback. So well, yes, it's important for you to respect yourself, it's important for you to believe in yourself, it's important also to be able to hear the comments around you, what people talk about you, the feedback that you get when it comes to work or those things, because through that also that's how you'll be able to gain respect of the other people.
But with that, you mentioning gaining feedback from others, how do you balance now gaining feedback from others and hearing stuff about you that you feel like, oh, now this is very disrespectful? Like,
I
what's the
see.
balance between the two?
I see. Well, number one, it's not something that you can just shut off. There's no button for it. You can't cherry pick what you hear. But me personally, I've always believed in seeing the comments or what people say about you, or even what you think people think about you. I think it's very valuable. However, when you do this, I think it's important as an individual to be strong with yourself, to be strong with your values, to be strong with who you are, and really just treat it as is, which is feedback, right? The feedback may be not completely correct, but the feedback probably came from somewhere. It might be a small thing, but regardless, it was a feedback. And I'm not saying that you should disregard it. I'm not saying you should respect it. Just treat it as is. It's feedback. Reflect on it. Think if it's valid. If it's valid, then try to work on it. And if it's not, then you have to be strong enough mentally to be able to say to yourself that, okay, this is just noise from other people.
Mm. I I wouldn't. I don't know, but I would predict like back then, when you were younger, did you what's the difference between you now receiving these feedbacks to when you were younger? Like, because I would say to myself, there are small changes. Like right now, I take it maturely, but back then, I would like if I hear feedback, I'd be, oh my gosh, what did I do this time? Like, because I'm the type of person, like, admittedly speaking, I would say I'm a people pleaser, and I'm trying to work on it. I'll be honest. It's not really to like please everyone, like please like me. No, it's more of I don't want to disappoint you. So yeah, tell me your experience about that.
Yeah, great input. And I empathize with you because I believe before I was also a people pleaser. Like every move I have to think, oh, what would people think about this specific move? Or if I post on Instagram, what would people react when it comes to this post or this specific caption? All of those things. I remember a conversation I had in my early 20s with someone late in their 20s. And he was saying something like, you know what, Brian, through time, like when you get older, you'll start to not care about what other people think. And since then, I've been reflecting on it. And surprisingly, I'm starting to feel that as well. I'm starting to really care less about what people think, and just really be strong with what I want to do with myself. So an example is I started doing freelance. So it was a big jump for me from going from corporate, stable income to doing freelance. And with being freelance, you really have to put your name, your face out there. And I started posting TikToks. By the way, guys, follow me on Instagram,
Shameless
TikTok.
plug. Let's go.
Also, I just launched my Facebook recently. And it was so embarrassing at first. But when I just reflected on it, I thought to myself, who am I trying to please? I'm not really trying to please anybody. And then that's when I realized, oh, I'm really doing this for myself. Like, I'm not doing this to please people, to make people happy. And I think it really comes with age. I can't pinpoint specifically what made me change that mindset. I can't think of a specific scenario, but I just know in time from my early 20s towards now my latter 20s, my mindset shifted to I'm doing this for myself and I'm not doing this to please you or anybody else.
Wow, I'll take note of that. Something I
And
would.
in a few years' time, maybe you'll be in my seat saying that to someone a few years younger.
I really do
Yeah.
hope so. So yeah, I want to be a teacher too in the future.
Yeah,
so
great. Yeah,
if
yeah.
anything, I'll take note of that. So third, if you want to control what people think, control what they say.
Okay. If you want to control what people think, control what they say. First and foremost, you can control other people. I think that's the first thing that came into my mind. You also can't control what other people think. I mean, that's the nature of the world. You know that saying, people through it all the time, only God can judge me. Well, yes, it's true at the end of life, but in right now in our day to day, it's normal, it's human for us to judge, right? When you're meeting a friend for the very first time, of course you're gonna judge him if he is a good friend or not, right? If you see a person, a random stranger, and you're going to meet him or maybe a client, of course you're gonna judge how they look. You're gonna judge how they speak, and that's very normal. But just going back to the topic of being able to control what other people think, I think you really can't avoid that. You really can't avoid what other people think and say about you. There's this thing in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm not sure if you read this book.
Oh wow, yeah. I know this
It's called
book.
the Circle of Concern. It's like a big concern. It's a big circle, right? And within this circle is the things that we're concerned about, such as money, traffic, the government, your work, your family, your parents, your siblings, everything around you, right? But then with that smaller circle is your circle of influence. What that basically means is that in that small circle, those are the things you can affect. Okay. So what the book is saying is don't care that much about the circle of concern, the ones outside your circle of influence, because you can't do anything about that. For example, traffic, especially in the Philippines. Oh my gosh, it's such a pain, right? But you can't necessarily do anything about the traffic itself. But what you can control is how early you wake up, how fast you get ready for work, how fast you, I wouldn't say how fast you drive, but how fast you just prepare yourself to be able to leave a certain time when there's less traffic, right? So again, you can't control what other people think or say about you. The important thing is you just be within your circle of influence. And what the book says is if you keep on growing, if you keep on learning, if you keep on working on your circle of influence, it will continue to expand, right? Until those that are outside of your circle of influence becomes inside because of your career, because of your status, because of your growth and all of these things.
Mm. Well, I do agree with that, but also the way how I view this quote or this saying, if you want to control what people think, control what they say. I think it's more of the way how you make conversations with people. If you are nice in saying something, then hopefully the other person you're talking to would say it nicely too. And then if you're harsh at saying it, then they would get offended and they might think, "Oh, why is this person telling me this in this kind of manner? Why don't I want to offend him too in a way?" Like that's how I took the quote also.
Fair, very fair, definitely. But at the end of the day, no matter how nice you are to people, you still can control how they're going to react or respond to you. I've had a lot of encounters in the past where I'd talk to a person, especially in work, wherein I'd have a nice tone, a very caring tone, a very considerate tone, but their reply is very straightforward, blunt, sometimes even, I wouldn't say offensive, but not the same energy as the one I gave. And to me, it's just like nothing. It's just a matter of fact. That's how I see it. I just speak nicely compared to her or him. And for this other person, that's his or her way of communicating. So I think it's not a big of a problem. I think it's not a problem that we should really dwell on, especially in our 20s. There are bigger problems that we have to talk about.
Right? Okay. The fourth one. You get more out of reading one book that's 5 times than out of reading 5 mediocre books. We just talked about a book a while ago.
Yeah,
So
I know. And I've been into reading recently this year. I think I'm on my 5th book, if I'm not mistaken. So very timely, your quote. Um, I wouldn't say it's hard. I mean, the hard thing about these quotes is it's probably part of a specific context, and wherever you probably got that, explain it in a different manner. But I'm just taking it as is, as a straightforward person. I wouldn't say so, because if what you can do with one book is you take your time in reading it, apply the learnings chapter per chapter, and that's when it becomes very impactful, versus just reading 5 books. Well, technically, you can do it with 5 books, right? Take your time, really try to digest it, practice it in your own way. Since I'm in the field of training, one of the things that we follow is what you call the learning methodology. So it's the 70-20-10 principle. It says basically 10% of our learning comes from formal learning. Could be reading a book, could be listening to a teacher in front of a classroom and all of those things. 20% is social learning, more related to coaching and mentoring. But 70%, a bulk of our learning, can you guess where it comes from?
where?
Can you guess?
70%. Since you mentioned social,
So
at
you have your
home?
formal, social,
At home?
not quite. So 70% is learning by doing. Right. On the job experience, experiential learning. So I think it's not the quantity of books that you read, it's not how many times you read a specific book. It's really a matter of if you learn from a specific book, if you have a specific teaching there, if you get to practice it, that I think is when it becomes impactful. I forget who said this quote, but knowledge is not power, it's potential power.
All right. Well, I'm gonna add that to
Okay.
one of the quotes.
Go.
Yeah. So, fifth one. Most champions do not have something that you do not. They lack something that you have.
It's a very interesting. Can you repeat that?
So, most champions do not have something that you do not. They lack something that you have. So let's just say Michael Phelps, best swimmer in the world. But he can't compare himself to you because you're more in what's your unique asset, as Brian says.
My
it.
personality.
So if that's the case, if I'm reading this quote, it's more of Michael Phelps is good in swimming, you're good in something else. That's something unique to you, and that's something unique to them.
I would agree with that. Again, I would like to go to this teaching I learned in university, in college. One of the professors there said, you really can't change the world, but you can change a corner of your world. And if everybody does that, then we'll have a better world. So for Michael Phelps, that's his fight. Swimming, competing in swimming. My fight is in something else. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm a champion, he's a champion, and others are not champions rather. It's really more of mastering your own craft, understanding what your place is in this world, and really just working on that. And in your own right, you'll be a champion because of it, regardless of the results, regardless of if other people are doing it better. If you're just focusing on yourself, if you're just really thinking that this is your calling, your vocation, what you're made to do in life, then I think that is a mark of a true champion more than anything else.
I'd like to ask, what is that unique? You mentioned personality. When were you able to find out that that's your unique selling point? I'm talking in marketing terms,
Yeah.
but unique selling point.
Okay,
to
I'm
others.
not so sure if personality. That was a joke. But I think you can say that. My personality, because it's unique. Your personality is unique to yourself. And it's really just to answer your question, when did I find out or figure out that this was something I can bank on, my personality?
Okay, let's not mention personality. Let's mention like whatever's unique to you.
Yeah, whatever's unique to me. I think it's really trial and error. For sure, all of those people who are listening have had multiple lives. Even if you're 25, 22, 21, you've had multiple lives already. What do I mean by that? Probably in high school, you were into arts. And then towards the end of high school, you were into sports. And in college, you're focused in academics. And later college, you started focusing on, let's say, reading books, right? So to me, I see that as different parts of our lives or different lives that we had. And to me, it's really just a collection of all my previous lives, really gathering a lot of data or information about what works for me, where I feel more natural at. And it's also with feedback as well. And people would say, hey, Brian, you're actually a very... people would tease me that I'm Mr. Congeniality. Or back when I was in university, they'd call me the mayor kasi every part of the university, I'd say hi, I'd stop the people, I'd talk to them. So it's also just like experiencing it by yourself, understanding your previous lives, your previous experiences, and also gathering feedback from people. Because if people didn't say that to me, I probably wouldn't know that I am that type of person who would, stop at every corner, stop at with every to every people, and like say hi and have a conversation with them. So it's really with experiences and getting feedback from people, especially the ones you trust.
Wow. Okay. So take note of that. 6.
We're still at 6.
Yeah.
Okay, good thing pala na hindi 20.
There you go.
Wala pa tayo halfway. How,
Yeah.
how long has it been?
23 minutes.
Oh, not bad. It felt long.
Yeah.
Felt longer. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So, sixth one. Goodwill compounds faster than money, which is positive sentiment and influence over a person's behavior. So, just to expound this more, you can't really please people just because you're generous with someone. But then, the way how I understood this is, as long as you have goodwill to another person, then that's good enough.
Good enough in what context?
Good enough for them to respect you. Good enough for them to be your friend. Because you know how dinadaan ng mga tao sa bagay para lang magkaroon kayo ng relationship or sa money. Then that's a mindset with a lot of people. I was like that too when I was young. Like I would focus more on, okay, maybe I should get something for this person so that we'd create this relationship, this bond. But then all I had to do was be friendly, be respectful, have good intentions with this person, and that's it.
I think in that context, you're very much true. I think you said the learning already. It's not really about how generous you are. It's not how much you can give in terms of material things. But it's really how good you are towards the person. And to be straight up, if you are a match with a person, I think I'd always like to go back to this whole people pleasing thing. Sometimes you do things because you want to please people. But in reality, if regardless of what we do and we don't please them, I think the best thing to do for us, especially if not really a big part of our lives, is to just move on and not get hung up in that situation. But I digress. I think just going back to what you're saying, yes, I think it's enough. But I'm not saying enough is what will get you that friendship. Like what I was saying, baka naman talaga hindi kayo tugma as friends, or in the context of love life, di ba, bigay ka ng bigay, nangliligaw ka, hatid sundo, you give a lot of gifts, flowers, chocolates, all of those things. But if the girl's not interested, or maybe you guys aren't really a match at the end of the day, then wala talaga. You can't do anything about that.
I would like to touch upon the whole people pleasing part. Um, I think I would love to get a perspective from you, which is I tend to have or I tend to make my decisions mostly out of an emotional basis. Let's say if I feel sad about something, I always pick the one or the opportunity that's already presented in front of me without thinking about it clearly. Um, have you had that experience also when it's full of emotions, a lot is going on, it's in bits and pieces like the house, you have a lot of finances you have to work on there, your other friendships with other people. Um, how do you able or how are you able to balance your emotions and sometimes set that aside and try to be objective with the things that you're doing?
I think I'm really grateful that I was able to build my emotional intelligence throughout the past years, being able to regulate my own emotions. But even with that, and by the way, I also teach things like emotional intelligence. So I really get to apply the concept that I would teach or facilitate when it comes to different clients of mine. But regardless of that, sometimes I still can't handle my emotions. It's too strong, especially when I feel really, really sad. Um, how I manage personally is surrounding myself with my friends. A good friend, I caught up with a good friend recently, and she knows that I am in a tough spot, or I was in a tough spot a few months back. And how she asked me the question really opened my eyes with how close we were. She was like, "Hey, Brian, how are you doing? Are you surrounding yourself with your friends?" So the reason why that really shook me is because she knows that my way of coping with emotions is really surrounding myself with people I trust. And in those conversations with the people I trust, they would help process the feelings with me, the emotions with me. They would laugh with me, or they would even make fun of me in the process. I think you know who I'm talking about. But that really helps with how I regulate my own emotions. It really varies. I know other people would shut themselves out, be in their own room, do their own thing, their hobby. Sometimes they cry it out on their beds, and the next day they're good, which is something I'm incapable of doing. So it's really trying to understand what works for you, what works best for you, um, and I think the learning I have here is emotions. It's an intangible thing, but you can actually treat it as data. I think that's one of the most valuable things I learned when it comes to emotional intelligence. You can look at your life, all the saddest and even the happiest moments in your life, try to pinpoint it and look at it as data points, and you'll see trends with how you act as an individual. For example, for me, now I know because of my history that the way for me to regulate hard emotions is to be around people, right? If I didn't see that as data, if I didn't understand my past, I probably would be, you know, clueless on how to manage my own feelings, which probably happened before, way back in the past. Okay, but because I see it as data, I see it as something that I can use for the future. It's been helping me ever since.
Uh, I'll take note of that also, because yeah, from past experiences, like what I mentioned is that even my dad or my mom would also say, you know what, you gotta toughen up your heart, because sometimes your heart is too soft that when you decide on things, you always focus on your heart, but not your brain or not your mind. So if anything, like sometimes you gotta loosen up and then just think objectively. And at first it was hard because again, um, you don't want to disappoint people, so that's what your main focus is. So it's like you put their mind onto yours, like you force their mind to your way of thinking, but you're both totally different. So therefore, you gotta not isolate, or maybe isolate your mind and then think things through and then make a decision. So yeah, wow, I just thought of that right now, so
Very
I'm gonna
great.
take note of
Yeah,
that
that is
right
very
now.
true. Though I do want to touch that very quickly, and I'm not disregarding what your parents told you, but more of my own experience. I would always tell people that your heart is incapable of thinking. So I'll leave it as that. I'll let you reflect on that. But I'd say that to people, your heart is incapable of thinking. So maybe it's not the heart that you have to work on, but the mindset. Right. But again, don't get me wrong, especially with people with, mental illnesses or maybe having a hard time. Diba? It's hard to say na, oh, just fix your mindset. Diba? That's a different case. But generally speaking, if medyo naman right state of mind, diba? It's really in the mindset.
All right, I'll take note of that. So that's 16 harsh truths because a while ago it was 15, now it's 16.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Dagdagan ng isa. Baka nga dadating tayo ng 20 with the additional points.
Yeah. So next one. You are going to die. Wow, sounds not now. Hopefully not
Okay,
now.
okay.
No, no.
Akala ko naman. Okay.
Yeah, but how much credibility or weight should we give to other people's opinions on what we should do with our lives? Unless the person has a vested interest in seeing you succeed and the context to provide advice, most times it's just worth ignoring because you're gonna die anyway.
Mm, that's too morbid, first and foremost. I don't want to die yet.
It's
I'm
very
still in
extreme.
my late 20s, so I have a long life left, hopefully. But me personally, I'm a big believer of coaching and mentoring. That's very true. I think I wouldn't be able to reach the point in my life right now without my previous mentors, coaches, or you know what, even with just my friends who would give me advice or even ask me proper questions to process my thoughts. I think it's very valuable to do that. The important thing is to really be mindful of who you're going to, right? As much as possible, you want to go to someone who has the same mindset. Maybe when it comes to career, if you want to talk to someone within your career, that would be good because at least it's in the right, alignment with what you want to do with your life. So it's really a matter of picking who you're going to listen to, but at the same time, don't underestimate those random pieces of advice that you get from people that you wouldn't say that you look up to them. Kasi malay mo, you'll get nuggets there. You'll get golden nuggets that you can use to yourself as well. So it's really just open ears all the time and just filtering whatever you believe is best for yourself.
Yeah, well, I do completely agree with that. But though, the same time, the way how I looked at this is, I'm not saying I'm gonna die. It's more of, even though I know my day or there are some days that is boring, I would just want to do at least one thing that I know is good. Could be wash the dishes, fix my room, read a book.
So you're okay to die after you wash your dishes.
I'm not saying I'm okay to die, but I'm saying is you can't really predict what the future holds. So, in the sense that I don't know what's gonna happen next, as long as what I can do now is a little bit of help or give goodness, maybe to myself or to other people, then I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna do it, and I'll be perfectly fine. Again, I'm not saying I want to die, but what I am saying is maybe a friend of mine, we won't be able to see each other in the next how many years. I want to make the most out of it because you don't know, you might not ever see each other again. Hopefully that you do, but also at the same time, make every word count. So that's the way how I view that quote.
Very valid and agree. No further comments. I think it's a beautiful quote nonetheless. So agree.
8. Extraordinary accomplishments come from doing ordinary things for extraordinary periods of time.
Good quote. Something in the lines of greatness in the ordinary, right? Yeah, definitely. If you do one thing that you are doing consistently, then more often than not, you'll be good at it, especially if you really put in the time. But I think if you look at it in a different lens, let's say you look at it in a professional who is stuck in a specific field, and they're consistent all throughout their life, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years in the same career, same field, only to end up changing their path 20 years down the road, right? So you can say that that person's consistent, but it still didn't end up in the same field that she was in. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's an end all be all. Like that quote should be posted on your wall. While consistency is good, I think it's also good for you to know that life is like a roller coaster. It's like, the heartbeat in the hospital,
The
your
beep,
pulse,
yeah, the
your
pulse,
pulse.
yeah.
It's up and down, right? What do I mean by consistent? Consistent might be just a straight flat line. But I think for us to really grow, we need to have those up and downs in our lives. We have to do detours here and there. So yes, while consistency is very good, I think it's important for us as well to really be mindful and to experience a lot of different things, because we really don't know what is for us when it comes to our purpose, our career, what we will end up 10 years down the road if we don't experience different things.
Mm. But I would like to ask also the question, the difference of where you were before to where you at now in terms of doing these ordinary things. Like what were the typical ordinary things you would do, let's say back in college, and how is it different now?
I think when I say ordinary, I'm thinking of it as something that people can do as well. For example, a skill that I believe I have is public speaking, and not a lot of people are comfortable with public speaking. And for other people, they're very good data-oriented people who are good with Excel, formulas, analysis, which I'm not naturally good at, right? So I think when I define ordinary, it's something every human being can do, and these are your habits. So I think what has helped me ever since college is really my respect for time. So if I tell myself that I'm gonna wake up at 5:15 a.m., I have to wake up at 5:14 a.m. Right? Because my mindset is if you are on time, then you're late. But of course, it's an exaggeration. Like our topic a while ago is about traffic. Sometimes you really can avoid it, no matter how much you wake up, but you can't avoid it. But I think being respectful of time, because I think time is all about respect for yourself, to be able to accomplish the things that you have to do to for yourself, for your day. Because if you don't respect time for yourself, ano mangyayari? All of the things that you have to do will be pushed back till late at night. And ano mangyayari? Fewer hours of sleep, right? And it becomes a cycle, right? At the same time, it's a respect. Time is also respect for other people, because they are, for example, you guys are meeting up. You guys have a meeting. They have their own agendas. They have their own lives. And if you arrive minutes late or maybe even an hour late, then their schedule will falter, right? So I think time is very important, or like one of the ordinary things that everybody can be more respectful of.
All right. Number 9. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing well. It's like, what problems are we solving? What am I hoping to accomplish? Is this worth doing at all? It's like I'd say prioritize the things that will make us the most money or going to get us closer to the goals we have.
Yeah. I think it's valid when we have coaching conversations. So coaching compared to mentoring is very Socratic. Mentoring is giving advice. Coaching is seek or asking questions to your coachee because we believe that you already have the answer. And in coaching, there's this framework that we try to follow. Of course, it's very fluid, but the general template that coaches have in mind is called the GROW framework. So when you're talking to a person in a coaching session, you first start with their goal. So where do you want to be X years from now, or what goal do you want to have? Okay. From your goal, you then talk about letter R, which is reality. Okay. So where are you currently right now? What's the status quo? What are your habits? Talk about yourself right now. Okay. From the R, your reality, you then talk about the options that can lead you toward your goal. Okay. So from the options, diba, you have maybe 3, 4, 5. You end with a W, the will and want. You pick the one that's the most optimum for you. So I think it's important for us to be able to, before choosing which paths to take, to be able to determine what do we really want to do, what our goals are, and doesn't have to be in the grander scheme of things. It can be a very short-term 1-year goal, or maybe half a year goal, or a monthly goal, or even a daily goal, right? It can be in smaller pieces. And from being able to determine your goal, and understanding who you are and what you are in the present, it will be easier for you to be able to determine which option to choose. I think that's one of the helpful things that I've, I guess, reflected on over the past years when it comes to being able to, just choosing which path to take.
Well, with the path you're taking right now, what goal are you trying to achieve?
I want to be an educator. Well, I am an educator in the corporate sense. At the end of my life, I would want to go back into the academe. I think I've had that goal maybe since I was in college. I don't know why. There's just something about the academe that calls me, considering I hated studying. Maybe it's that also, no? Na because I hated studying, I want to be that spark wherein people will say, hey, because of this professor, because of what this person is teaching, I love studying, right? So that's my end goal, or at least in terms of career, that's what I want to be. Of course, before that, there are a lot of steps that I have to take. From gaining experience in corporate, doing consulting, doing freelance. Maybe the next step for me is building my own firm. Let's see. It's really not a straight path, because you learn along the way. You charge things to experience. So it's really just at least being mindful of what your goal is and being flexible and adaptable in the moment.
Well, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would also want to hear, because this is something that us young people would love to hear also, is goals in terms of relationships. So to where you're at right now in your 20s, what's your goal now in terms of relationships? So that I'm pretty sure there's young audiences also that have a different perspective, but now, of course, you have a different perspective in terms of your age now. So I would like to hear the difference from the two.
I wouldn't say the mindset that I have right now, at this point of my life, latter 20s, versus a person who has a mindset in the early 20s is mutually exclusive. What I mean by that, I might actually share the same mindset with someone in their early 20s or even in their teens already, right? But let me just share you straight up what my mindset is. You have to be straightforward of what you want. That's very important from the get-go. In the getting to know stage, because I believe a good relationship starts with friendship. Okay. In the friendship stage, right, it's very important for you to be clear of, number one, your intentions, number two, your goals in life, right? Because if you see in that moment that your goals are not aligned or as aligned, then maybe it's worth considering moving the different or going to another person, another girl or another guy, right? Because what might happen, and believe me, I've experienced this firsthand, you go through X amount of years of being in a relationship with the knowledge of you not having the same goals, only to end up breaking up because of that initial knowledge already, right? But again, you can't set it in stone. Who knows, diba? Like throughout the process, people might change minds and all. But I think the safest way or a good mindset really is dapat align yung goals nyo kahit paano.
But I would also like to ask this question because I'm very interested. Wait, hold up with the harsh truths. So I want to get a perspective also with this. How do you differentiate now intention and being friends? Because a lot of people have, when people say, you have to be friends first with the person you like before you actually court them. But then a lot of people, when they hear that, they don't know how to balance it. In a sense that there are some others out there who prefers, why don't you show me your intentions firsthand? And then there would be other guys, the other guys would say, oh no, because I wanted to be respectful, I wanted to be friends first. But then there's other people who are also saying na, de, dapat binigay mo, like you had to show your intentions first. Pero yun nga, like, it's hard to balance these two things. So in your perspective, how do you balance these two things?
Again, I don't think these are two separate things, right? I think you can be straightforward with your intention and at the same time build the friendship for the purposes of dating in the future. Because it's not like you go out on a second date and then you act like you're together already. I mean, it happens to a lot of people, yes. But I think personally for me, my take is you build on the friendship, you get to know the person. If you're interested, then you tell her or him your intention, okay? And in the process, you build your friendship. Because who knows, even after you tell your intention, what if di mo pala gusto? Right? May ick pala siya in the Gen Z's. Tama, ick, diba? It's a Gen Z term, an ick. Or the aura does not match, right? Malay mo, makita mo yun within those friendship. Okay? And yes, I've dated people in the past na hindi naging kami. But what I was able to see is, because in the getting to know you stage, we really focused on, both parties really focused on building the friendship first. These are people that I can actually message later on and maybe open up about my life. And the connection is still there. So worst comes to worst, hindi nga naging kayo, pero you're able to build a friendship or gain a new friend. Right?
Okay, we're getting out of the harsh truths. So
Well, it can be a harsh truth, actually, right? If you think about it, but continue.
yeah. Maybe in the next pod we talk about this again. So yeah. Yeah. So next one is, be willing to negotiate everything except for your values.
Yep, non-negotiable. When I recently had the training for this company. It's a first-time management training. So, well, not all of them are first-time managers, but these are junior leaders in an organization about to be promoted to senior leadership or a higher leadership position. And one of the things that they wanted to learn from my research and analysis of them is how to find their leadership identity. I won't go into detail, but the very first thing I made them determine is their values. Okay? Because their values will be able to shape how they act and connect as a leader, right? So same thing with the individual outside of corporate, outside of leadership. Values is something that is non-negotiable for us. It's your values. I think nobody should step on anybody else's values. If it doesn't go or align with your values, whatever the situation is, then maybe it's best to veer away from it.
But was there ever a time where you had to change your values in a setting, not because other people wanted to, but you started realizing, I gotta change, or I need to change?
Um, I wouldn't say I changed a value. I can't think of a situation right now, but I guess just looking at my life, for sure, my priorities in terms of values would change, but it would still remain a value. For example, okay, and I'm talking hypotheticals. Let's say family is a high value with me right now. It's number one, right? And then work is one, and then working out, living a healthy life, right? And let's say friendships, those four things, right? Those four things are the usual values of people, right? But throughout their life, depending on where they're at, it would rearrange, okay? So because, let's say, I have a family, like I start to have a family with someone, I have a kid, the workout value maybe becomes lower because I have less time for it. But it remains to be a value for me. So I'm not saying that I have changed a value in the past, because I think values, at the end of the day, it's innate. It's innate, right? You can't change it. But the priority of which, if you were to rank it, it can vary whichever stage in your life. I think that's my personal take on it.
So let's say, for example, for me right now, football. It's like it's something that I loved doing when I was a kid.
And if you turn that into value, maybe let's say healthy living.
Healthy living,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm not saying I'm not trying to live healthy now, but like I see where your point is. The priority shifts, wherein healthy living back then to me was sports. Now it changes to eating healthy,
Yeah,
but it's the
exactly.
same value.
It's the same value, right? So it varies, it shifts, the ranking, if you're even able to rank it in the first place, it changes throughout your life. I guess one top of mind value that I have is friends, right? Being able to connect with my friends. I could argue in my younger days it would be top three. So it'll be, of course, my faith. I forgot about faith, right? My faith, my family, and then friends. Maybe now it's faith, family, my work, my health, and then my friends, right? I'm not saying I don't care for my friends. To my friends, I love you guys. But priority just shifted. And I know a lot of people in my batch who I was so close to, I talked to day in and day out back in college and even the first few years post college. But now I just talk to them once a month, maybe even once every 2 months, just because their priority when it comes to friendship or keeping the connection lowered because their priority is in something else. But again, going back, it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't value me anymore. It's just a matter of fact of their value or their efforts are in other values more than the friendship itself.
What can you say to people who have a hard time shifting that mindset in terms of priorities of how they value certain things? Let's say with friends, because there are tons of people I'm pretty sure out there who are not used to the idea that, of course, priority changes, especially when you grow older. You're focused now on work. Maybe you have a family of your own. You don't really think about the friends around you as much. But then there are other people who get hurt by that. They would say, "Ano, hindi na tayo bate, hindi na tayo nagkikita." Like, how? I'm not asking you to like to help completely, especially to our audience, but like, how can you give them a better perspective that it's okay for you to change your values for as long as it's not something that like totally removes from your mindset of how you view them. It's just the time.
Again, just to correct, I'm not saying to change your values. It's really more of like adapting, shifting. Yeah. I actually had a similar experience. What I said a while ago, like a friend that I would talk to regularly, I would talk to once a month now. Nung una, nagtampo ako syempre. Like, yung pinagsamahan natin, parang binaliwala mo lang. Kasi we don't hang out with us anymore. You're always busy. And to an extent, nagtampo ako sa kanya. Right? But I think it was a matter of growth. And I think people who are about to graduate will experience this as well. Right? You will see your friends right now in college. You might not be friends with them after college anymore because their priority shifts or their values realign or shift in a different manner compared to yours. Okay, and that's totally fine. There's no hard tip that I can say. It's really a matter of just experiencing it because no matter what I say, wala it's your own feelings. Mararamdaman mo yung tampo pag nangyari yun sa'yo. That specific instance. It's really a matter of really just accepting it. And having that mindset that this person has a different life, I have my own life, and regardless of which paths we take, right, just as long as this person doesn't hurt me or say anything bad to me, she or he will still be my friend.
All right. Next one. Not really a quote, but a value.
Okay.
Humility. This is like a definition or another definition for it, I would say. Not increasing regard for yourself, but increasing regard for others. You gain status by giving more to the group than you get. And if you want to gain status, the way you do it is by sacrificing more for the group than everyone else does. So that's where humility comes in.
Can you say the first part again?
Not increasing regard for yourself, but increasing regard for others.
Okay. It's a fair quote, but I just see humility as is. I see humility as being open to learn. When someone knows better than you, then you open your ears. But at the same time, humility is also believing in yourself. Because when people think of humility, it's always like, oh, I'm not that good. Parang, yung medyo na, parang doubting yourself na to that extent, right? If you're good at something, you're good at it, period. Okay? But where that becomes, ano ba yung opposite ng humility? Mayabang or boastful is when you do it to the expense of other people or when it's unnecessary or it's excessive, right? So me, I have a mindset, and people, my friends won't believe this, but I believe I'm a very humble person. I may joke about let's say how good I am when it comes to specific things, but at the end of it all, I'm a humble person. I'm a person of learning, and I think that's the most important value that people can really have. Yes, it's humility, but how I would define it personally is just constantly being able to, or constantly open to learning new stuff and being corrected by other people if it's valid.
I'll be honest, I don't have really much to say about this whole humility thing.
Kulang ka pa sa humility yan kasi.
Hindi
Just
naman.
kidding.
But no, the thing that I would only think about in terms of being humble is, do you think that sometimes when you're too focused on being humble, it's kind of obvious.
Pa-humble in Filipino. Yeah, that's true. That's why like I was telling you a while ago, if you're good at something, you're good at it. Period. Like there's no point in hiding it. And maybe it might be a hot take for people because they're not like that. Mahiyain sila, and that's totally fair. But me personally, I'm talking from my own experiences. If I'm good at something, I have to own it because I have to believe in myself. Again, we are our harshest critic. So if I don't believe in myself, I won't be able to do what I'm doing. Okay. For example, doing trainings, public speaking, if medyo pa-humble ako, if I doubt myself, I might not be able to find the courage to go in front of 1,000 people and deliver my speech, right? So to an extent, I have to believe in myself, but it is internal, right? I don't express it to people na, oy, magaling ako, magagawa ko to ng sobrang galing, right? I'm better than you. That's not being humble. Being humble, I think, is really just believing in yourself, facing the moment or situation or scenario, whatever that is. And being humble in that moment is learning that there's so much room for growth, regardless of how good you are.
Yeah, I would like to connect this whole humility part to what you were mentioning a while ago, feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, own up to how you do things. Not necessarily own up na may mistake ka, but it's more of like, if you know to yourself that you can do it, then you should. But there's nothing wrong also with receiving feedback from people
Yeah,
on how you can do
definitely,
better.
definitely. Feedback is really good. I can't stress enough. And this is also for my friends watching. This is also my defense to myself. Pag sinasabi nilang mayabang ako, I love feedback. Right? Whenever I do my engagements, training, speaking, and there's a feedback form, I'm the first one to open it. Kahit isang result pa lang yan, refresh ako ng refresh. That's because I really want to know what people think in terms of my performance. So I know what I could do better. Not to please them, but for my own growth and learning. So humility comes with being open to feedback. Agree.
All right. Next one is, the happy man has 1,000 wishes. The sad man has only one.
Okay. And that's the whole saying that the sad man's wish is to be happy. Something in that effect. I mean, I'm a very logical and straightforward person, so I disagree. Because if I'm sad, yes, one of my wishes is to be happy. I probably have a wish to be rich. I have a wish to, let's say, have good food on the table. But at the end of the day, right, that's also being happy, right? Yeah, that's true. To be honest, it's so hard to talk about these types of quotes because it comes from an author, probably
A YouTuber, actually.
a YouTuber, came from a specific experience that I might not be able to relate to. But I'll just speak of it as is, right? Marami tayong gusto sa buhay, and just go for it. Regardless if you're sad, you're happy, I think do what makes you happy is very important. But at the same time, still being logical and objective about the steps that you're taking, right? Why do I say that? Because a lot of people in this world want to be rich, and being logical and objective and ethical about it is not going to illegal stuff. You get what I'm saying? So it's the same concept. So go for it. Just be logical, objective, and ethical about it.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I guess for me, it's like, when I am sad, I do try to find things that, okay, a lot of people, like you were mentioning, find happiness through things that are not ethical or through things that is out of pleasure. Um, and I'll be honest, I used to be that type of person. Is that I would shift my focus now to vices. I'm not saying I did drugs, but what I am saying is, of course, there's alcohol, or there's other things. It actually makes you more sad than ever. It's like a short-term happiness that you experience, but then right after, it hits you way harder than how it was before. But then the reason why I'm saying these things is because I still do have experiences of being sad from time to time, because problems shift from when you were younger. Your problems, the way how I'm thinking right now, it's petty, or not petty. It's like little to no problem nga yan when you think about it now with your age now. But the problems that I deal now, sometimes I think na I do agree with this quote. Like, I just want that one single moment for me to at least give a smile to my face and be proud of it. One of the things also, and a lot of people would think that just because it it helps the other person, it doesn't help you. Um, so of course, magiging sad ka. Let's say, for example, as simple as eating a chocolate bar, the last piece of chocolate bar, and then there's this kid in front of you who is staring at the piece of chocolate bar. You want to give it to them, or at least myself, I would want to give it to them because I want to see this kid happy. At first, I'd be like, oh man, it's sad. Wala na akong chocolate. But then when I stare at them and then they're smiling because they ate that chocolate bar, it makes me more happy now. And I guess that's one thing that I would love to mention to people is that sometimes doing the right things, that even if it takes sacrifice on your end, for as long as it makes the other person happy, is already the best thing you can do for you to be happy. So yeah, I would agree with this.
Yeah, I mean, just to one of the things I think I learned in philosophy back in college, and I hope I'm not wrong with this. Maybe this is how I interpreted it, right? But you really can't equate happiness with material things, and it's the same thing with your experience. That material thing is the chocolate. If you eat it, okay, it might give you joy, but happiness is when you give that last piece of chocolate to someone else and you see them have that joy as well. That's happiness, I think. More than that, I think happiness, again, well, yes, you can express it as an emotion. I'm happy because I got a promotion. I'm happy because I got a new toy. I think happiness, at the philosophical definition, is being able to move towards your main goal in life, your self-actualization, your calling in life. The things that you do towards that goal, I think that is what true happiness is, more than any material thing in this world.
Yeah. Whatever develops your soul or your spirit, I think for me is the best way for you to quote unquote be happy. So yeah. Second to the last. We're almost there. Failure, sorry, I'm gonna repeat that again. Number 13, failure leads to learning. Learning leads to success. Success leads to complacency. Complacency leads to failure.
Okay, so it's a cycle, right? I have a friend. His name is Mike. I think he's one of the people in your podcast as well.
Which
He
will
talked
be in the
to-
next podcast in the few
Podcast.
or a few podcasts.
I forget one of the things that he taught me, or he discussed to me, is something about that, like competency. Like it's a cycle wherein you don't know you're good at it, and because you're not good at it, you work on it, so you become good at it, right? And then you're unconsciously good at it, and then when you realize that you're good at it, you're not good at it anymore. So you keep on growing. It's a cycle, right? Which is true. But I think it's not like that all the time, right? I think failure comes in waves, success comes in waves. I think a good framework I have in mind is learning and performing. So if you think of a Venn diagram, you have the learning circle and the performing circle, right? In life, there are moments that we should be purely learning and purely performing. So for example, when you're on a stage in front of 1,000 people, what should you focus on? Learning or performing?
Learning first.
No, when you're on the stage already,
On
giving
the
the talk.
stage, yeah, of course, performing.
Performing, right? Because you can't make mistakes when you are performing, right? But after the performance, whatever that performance may be, that's when you shift to a learning mode, right? What did I do? What did I do right? What did I do wrong, right? But in that Venn diagram, there is an intersection, right? That is a perfect moment for us to be able to learn and perform at the same time. And when I would train managers for leadership topics, it's one of the things that you would always talk about. That intersection between the learning and performing, that is a valuable space for the manager to be a part of, right? While the direct report, while the employee is doing their work, give them opportunities to fail so that they learn in the process, right? Just make sure that it is a calculated risk. Okay. Because for example, if you are talking about millions and you can't make a single mistake, then it has to be perfect. It has to be on the performing stage. But you have to be able to simulate an experience for your direct reports. And even I think for us as individuals, wherein we are in moments of both learning and performing. And that's where I think growth really happens more than just thinking these things individually.
Oh, we're on the last one.
Last one. Okay. Is this save the best for the last?
I hope it
Okay,
is, or I
let's see,
hope it
let's see,
does.
let's
Yeah.
see.
Let's say this quote is coming from this one person who's saying it right now to you. Just think of it, maybe it's me or another person. I would pay any amount of money to make obvious truths real for me. In a sense, I would pay any amount of money to learn all of the things that I need to learn so that I could be better in the future. Say, for example, it could be education, it could be courses, it could be mentoring, it could be coaching, and etc. I mean, as a coach, what do you think?
Go for it if you have the means. If you're privileged to, why not? One of the things, my favorite memories of a conversation I have with my friend is about passion, right? So passion was the root word of passion. What do you think?
Oh, there is?
Yeah,
Um,
the
I'm,
Latin root word. Passion of Christ. Passion actually means suffering.
oh, wow, okay. I'm learning something now, if
Right?
I'm being
So,
honest.
I guess just to reframe things is passion is something that you're willing to suffer for. And in my career, I'm willing to invest time, money, blood, sweat, tears, fewer hours of sleep to pursue this passion of mine, right? But know that that comes from a person of privilege, wherein I am comfortable with the bed that I have. If I don't have money for the next month, I'm okay because I live in a house with my parents, and they can provide still, right? So I'm in a place of privilege. I have people to rely on. I have safety nets. Okay, so if you're in a position like that, go take advantage of your privilege. Use your resources to be able to learn, buy books, masters if gusto mo naman. It really depends on to you. But that is only one way of doing things. You can definitely do other things without that much resources. Like I told you, there's this thing in the learning methodology 70-20-10. The bulk of our learning comes from learning by doing. So if you just shut up, stop complaining, and just do, then you'll learn in the process, right? I think I've seen a lot of people who really look at things very scientifically and theoretically and academically before taking their very first step, which is fair, which is good. It's good to be, what's the term for it? Being mindful of what you're doing before you actually do it. Uh, let's just leave it at that, no? Being mindful of your action before doing it, right? That's good. But sometimes for the people who are, let's say, won't have their luxury of time to do that, they just do, right? If you think about one of the bigger e-commerce platforms, I think a lot of early adopters in being able to put up a shop are those that don't have a degree in marketing. They don't have a degree in commerce, right? Because they're doing it out of need. Kailangan nila ng pera para may pagkain sa table, right? That's why, e-commerce in the Philippines became a big thing, because it really gives an opportunity to people who have no businesses put up their own shop and expand the network. Kaya lumaki yung two big players in the Philippines when it comes to e-commerce here. So just going back to that statement, quote, or whatever you want to call it, yes, go invest, learn, take masters if you want, go abroad. I'm not stopping, or people are not stopping you from doing that. I think knowledge is very important. Investing in yourself is important. But if you don't have the resources for it, you can be creative about it, right? A lot of things are online. You can learn those things on YouTube, and all different free platforms. But sometimes the best way to do things is to just do it.
Nike quote.
Nike quote. Not sponsored, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, what a better way to end it if I mean, those are the 14 harsh truths that if anything, I got this from, his name is Alex Hermozi, from YouTube, who's a really great businessman, and these are the quotes that he mentioned. And it's good to reflect on it also, because as I was watching him talk about these truths, it's so good, but also at the same time, I would want to hear another perspective from another person who has a different experience also. But before we end the pod, if there's one quote, message, or anything that you would want to speak out for audiences that it could be a harsh truth to them also. What is that quote?
Okay, so when you were asking the question, something came into mind. I was originally about to say it as a joke, but biglang it made sense in my mind. And that is three words: go, grow, and glow. Do you know that? You're
Yeah, yeah,
familiar with
yeah,
that?
yeah,
It's a science thing. Is it with food?
yeah. It's with food. Yeah.
Food, right? Go, grow, and glow. But it makes sense when it comes to our own development. The first one is to go and experience, go and fail, right? Go experience things you've never experienced before. Because in that process of going and just doing things, you learn. And because you're learning, you grow. And as you continue to grow, get the new skills, understand who you are as an individual, if you ever become the best version of yourself because you keep on growing, and then you glow. And when you glow, when something glows, rather, you shine. You get people's attention. And in that process of getting people's attention, you might be able to inspire someone. So, go, grow, and glow.
All right. We'll keep that in mind, of course. Now, with that being said, guys, this is your host, Quincy, together with a very good friend of mine, Brian Sese. And this is The Characters with Quincy. Bye, guys.